we will start the class holding the mind taking refuge and bodhicitta as our main intention to participate in this gathering. And we will hold these two realizations as our main motivation by saying the refuge and the bodhicitta lines together 3 times. And as I have shared with you many times, we should habituate ourselves while verbally saying the lines, those 4 lines, and also at any prayer, verbally say the prayer, mentally try to connect our mind with the meaning of that what we are saying, prayer, mantra, whatever that we are saying. And that is really something important, not to learn bad habit. That is, verbally saying the prayer, reading the prayer, but mentally not connected with what we are saying. Mental state is very much, not very near to the meaning what we are saying. In Tibetan we have this what you call sometimes daily recitations are called in Tibetan kandun. Ka is the mouth, dun is the recite. So mouth recitation, which is not very nice term to use. So therefore, when we say the refuge lines, whenever, like here at the gathering, or at the beginning of your day, or beginning of your short meditation, when you say these 4 lines or other prayer, really try to habituate, familiarize, verbally saying the prayer, mentally try to associate with the prayer what we are saying. So therefore, here, those 4 lines, first 2 lines, as you know, help us to hold, the refuge, mind taking refuge. And there it involves, the 3 refuge objects, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And also it involves oneself as a person who take refuge, and also it involves thinking time of taking, duration of the taking refuge is until experience the full enlightenment. So that is really something important to verbally saying the words or lines, mentally try to connect with what we are saying. And same the last 2 lines, strongly, it involves oneself as a, holding that altruistic mind, to benefit all living beings, whatever virtues, whatever wholesome that we, that we manage to create, always try to dedicate, not just one's own well-beings, but well-beings of all living beings. So that is something useful to habituate that familiarize in that fashion. Now we will say the refuge and the bodhicitta lines. Sangye Chedang Tsoli Chanjo Pando Dani Dagi Chinso Tsonam Dola Penje Sangye Sangye Chedang Tsoli Chanjo Pando Dani Dagi Chinso Jive Tso Dola Penje Sangye Sangye Chedang Tsoli Chanjo Pado Dani Janso Che Dagi Jinso Jive Tso Dola Penje Sangye Mind taking refuge and the altruistic awakened mind as our main motivation to participate in this gathering. Now we will say a few times together the Geshe mantra, the 6-syllable mantra, while verbally saying the mantra, mentally hold very strong compassion, loving kindness, towards all living creatures. Start from oneself, one's own loved ones, friends, colleagues, community, and then extend towards all living creatures. And then, of course, people who are familiar with the visualizations of either form Chenresi or Thousand Chenresi, you can do so either above your head or in front of you, facing towards you. And if you visualize, then from the Avalokiteshvara, in the aspect of multi-colored lights, in the nature of Avalokiteshvara's great compassion, reaching towards all living beings, and strongly feel, due to that all the difficulties, all the challenges, physical and mental, they are completely sort of pacified, eliminated due to reaching Avalokiteshvara's great compassion in the aspect of multicolored light. Also, you can do that same when if you don't visualize Avalokiteshvara. Also, you can do the same sort of imagine reaching that multicolored light in the aspect of multicolored light in the nature of your strong loving kindness, great compassion, reaching towards living beings, and ease all their fears, worries, concerns, difficulties, and so helpful to do that kind of visualization. Oh. So this beautiful prayer that we read not last year, year before, when we first started this online program, Maitreya Buddha prayer, Maitreya Buddha prayer that we read, and in that prayer, not in the prayer itself, but traditionally at the beginning of the prayer, there is a verse. There is a verse, and the verse beautiful. It says, "Chamchen Mei Shetang Pushing Se." So Chamchen, Chamba, Chambo, great love, great loving kindness. Chamba, Chambo, Chamchen. Mei is the fire, Mei, by the fire of the, the great loving kindness. Chamchen Mei. Shetang is anger or hatred. Shetang. Pushing is the firewood. Sek is the, means burn. So that first line, it is saying, by the by the fire of the great loving kindness, burn the Shetang, burn the wood of the firewood of the hatred or anger. Chamchen Mei Shetang Pushing Se. That is really beautiful, isn't it? If you look at Chamchen is the great loving kindness. Chamchen Mei is the fire. Mei Yi, by the fire of the great loving kindness, what that will do, that will burn down or burn out, burn down the firewood of the hatred or anger. Chamchen Mei Shetang Pushing Se. So here, loving kindness, great compassion, when we develop, when we cultivate those, the mental qualities, that will really, reduces the anger, hatred, those things. Chamchen Mei Shetang Pushing Se. Geshe Tashi Marik Membasel. Geshe, wisdom, wisdom. Here, wisdom realizing emptiness. Although it not mentioned realizing emptiness, but here refers to that. Geshe, Virji, the light of the, or the brightness, or the light of the wisdom realizing emptiness. Geshe Virji, Marik Mubasel, Marikba, ignorance. Mumba is darkness, and the cell is illuminate or eliminate. So by the wisdom realizing emptiness will dispel the darkness of ignorance. Then the last two lines particularly refers to Maitreya Buddha. Chö gyalsap dove gwengyurpa. Chö dharma. Chö gyalsap. So the region, of the Dharma King, the region of the Dharma King, Chö gyalsap. Dove gwengyurpa. Being the region of the Dharma King, become the protector of the living beings, Drowa, migrators, or sentient beings. Dove Gwengyupa. Then the last line is Ganden Shukwa Tela, Chatselo. Ganden Shukwa. Ganden is Tushita, Shukwa is abiding, and Shukwa Tela, to whom residing, abiding in Tushita are offer prostrations. So today my main point is first two lines, meaning those first two lines, which is very much relevant to our last week's reading. Because last week our main reading was out of the the four powers. Our reading was mainly focused on the power of remedial action. So to purify, the afflictions and their seeds and the propensities left by the afflictive actions. The actual antidote. Actual antidotes are those realizations. So our actions, our actions led by anger, led by hatred, and after the action, the propensity or the imprints that are left behind after the action, those propensity, those imprints will be clear away, will be cleansed when we cultivated loving kindness. And this is what here, this first line. So same as our activities, actions that we commit, unwholesome actions, unhealthy actions, or negative karmas that we committed out of misunderstanding, out of ignorance, out of not knowing the situation, things as they are, and those actions, what you call the imprints, karmic imprints left behind by those actions. These karmic imprints, will be eliminated, will be purified when we cultivate wisdom. Like the wisdom realizing emptiness, like the wisdom realizing impermanence, like the wisdom realizing, the nature of samsara, samsaric nature. Many of our mistakes that we make, due to that kind of misunderstanding, or that kind of not knowing the nature of samsaric condition, situation, and we, caught up in that circle. So that is really something. These lines clearly, indicated what are the main antidotes. What are the main antidotes to really, or here term is used, remedy. What are the main remedies to really to clarify, our negativities and imprints, karmic imprints left by those negativities, and that is really something which is important to remember. And as I mentioned last week, this what you call the verse from Dhammapada, which I've already said several times during this, during reading this, Vajrasattva, because quite often, this kind of teachings or practices has a potential to misunderstood, mislead what is the meaning of purification. We may think there's some kind of external force, external some sort of blessings that may really sort it out all our problems. This. Do you remember that what you call the Dhammapada, that verse? Doedumi, doedumi, chaki misela, niti tong, shela pomi, chuni deba, tumnam deba, chu nutrition. So the Buddhas cannot wash our, negativities by pouring water upon us. Buddha cannot take away our sufferings by his hands. So that verse is very, very important verse, very, very capturing, very important, point of the Buddha Dhamma. So therefore, must carry those basic teachings. Must, the teachings and the points must carry all the way up to the Vajrayana, the teachings and practices. If we feel Vajrayana is exceptional, it can do something, very, that cannot be done in the Sutrayana. That sometimes that make mistakes. So that is important to remember. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So now today we are going to focus on the last power, the power of determination. Determination. That is on page 3, power of determination. So last week, end of our class, I left one short statement, and I said this statement, or that statement is stated very stated all the time when we do the confessing practice. Fully ordained monks twice a month. Do you remember? That is nyabala nyaba tongam. That means, do you see the faults as a faults, or downfalls, whatever, or the negativities? Do you see the negativities are as a negativities? Nyabala nyaba tongam. And that is the question. And the second question is chinje lepa domam. That means in the future, do you refrain from them? Chinje lepa domam. Fully lepa, fully, completely, restrain or refrain from them. So those are the two questions. And these two questions are very, very relevant to this. In general, all, to do the purification practice, and in particularly this power of determination. power of determination. So we really try to find the answer to those two questions. Those two questions. When somebody asks us, or when we do, our own, ask that question to ourselves. As you know, Kadamba masters, that those masters around 11th century, after the Atisha's teachings in Tibet, those Kadamba masters, when they travel from one place to another place, and as soon as some downfall occur, and right there, if they are riding horse to travel from one place to another place, right there, disembark the horse and immediately, what you call the confess, whatever downfall has taken place. What that indicates? It indicates two things. First, those masters are all the time, paying attention to the actions of their body, speech, and mind. And paying attention is the one, but also realizing the downfalls or the negativities has taken place. That is the first thing. Second thing is immediately confess, perform the confessing the negativities. So that is here. Those two questions, although in the rites, ritual, it's always asked. For example, in the monastic, twice a month, it is those two questions are asked by the abbot, who is leading the ritual, the confessing ritual. He will ask those two questions 3 times. 3 times. Why asking those 2 questions 3 times? That is important. Why saying 3 times? To really to make sure you have recognized, you have realized the downfalls are created, committed, and really sincerely to answer. Now the answering those 2 questions should not be in a form of ritual, which it happens all the time, because now when I was in London all those years, I haven't done that. Didn't do that twice a month. That because it has to be at least 4 fully ordained monks should be there to perform that twice a month, confessing rites. But here, when we do, the answer immediately comes: yes, I see, or yes, I've seen, but not very sure whether I've seen as a negativities, but become very habit and answer: yes, I've seen. And the abbot asks, will you refrain from them in the future? Yes, I am. So yes, I will. So answer comes very automatically, not really very honestly, and that is here important to come the answer very from our heart, very honestly and very sincerely. Now the first one, to come answer very sincerely, it is not easy, but it can be done. But second one is difficult to answer. The second question, saying, will you refrain in the future? Then Yeah, I've seen them as a downfall, but whether I'm able to refrain tomorrow, day after tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, that is not easy. Not easy. But it will, some teachers, some masters have said, instead of saying, yes, I will refrain, instead of fully making that full commitment, saying, yes, I will, even though you will do soon after you finish confessing rites, But so some teachers, some masters say, yes, as much as I can to refrain, because you already know some of them. These are, you will not, you are unable, you cannot keep. So here, determination, the power of determination is, of course, all the four powers are important. This power of determination is very, very important. Determination not to repeat the downfalls of the negativities that we have seen as a negativity, as a downfall. Because if we are unable to restrain from those negativities that we have done in the past, then the purification will not work. It is like a saying, in the garden you have planted, as I might call my usual example, planted a wrong plants. You see as a wrong plants, but constantly pouring water, taking care, putting manure, fertilizer, and let it grow. If we stop pouring water, that will help. Even though the negativity, the seed may not be completely eradicated, may not be completely purified from our mental continuum. If we stop making the same mistakes, then it will not, what's called, it will not nurture to grow further. So that is here. And stop nurturing the negativity, the seeds and that we left our previous negative action. Nurturing is repeating that again, similar action again and again and again. That is the nurture negativities. And stopping is this determination, which is a very important part of the purification. Now, here how to again, as I mentioned when we are talking about second power of regret, really to cultivate deep sense of regret, develop regret that the negativities that we have committed in the past, we should see the negativities as negativities, which I mentioned now, and also the law of cause and effect and all those things. Similar to here, really to build the determination to refrain or to restrain from the negativity, then again, we need to see these negativities are how harmful, how destructive to ourselves, to others. If we see that, then initially we may struggle, but it won't be that difficult because of our human nature. Generally speaking, we love ourselves, we care ourselves. That is our human nature. Although it may have a little bit self-centered element in that we care ourselves, we love ourselves, generally speaking, in that process, there might be little bit self-centered, but that is, very much, in our psyche, in our, mental thinking. So if we love ourselves, if we care ourselves, then we may not do those harmful things. When we really see the harmful actions as a harmful. So this question, that is to answer to that question very, very sort of honestly and sincerely. To do that, we need to see the negativities as an activity, like what you call when people who have studied the foundation of Buddhist thought, when in the third module, those 6, root afflictions. Why they are called root afflictions? Because attachment, aversion, ignorance, which those are out of the 6 are, root afflictions, because they create many other problems, not just one problem, many other problems. Therefore, they are called root afflictions. Root, like a tree. Trees have a root. So similar to that. So those are the really something important to bring over here. Here. Then we will understand where we are able to answer to this question very, what you call correctly and very truthfully. So here now I'm reading the text itself. Address Vajrasattva. So this is in the form of visualization. So we apply, in this case, reciting the 100 syllable mantras or short Vajrasattva mantra on Vajrasattva home, with holding either deep realization of emptiness, realization of impermanence, realization of loving kindness, realization of great compassion, altruism, holding that, and then reciting the mantra and, applying as an antidote. Then, here, imagining that we have visualized Vajrasattva above our head, 4 inches above our head, we have visualized Vajrasattva. And from the Vajrasattva answer, or this address through the ignorance and delusions I have broken, degenerated my commitment. So here is very much focused on when we take vows, tantric vows, bodhisattva vows, very much in that context. But shouldn't be only in that area. There are two, generally speaking, what we call rangshinji kana matoa, naturally, negativities, by their nature, negativities by their nature, rangshinji kana, by their nature, in the sense whether you have taken vows or not, any living being, and particularly any human beings who involved in that particular, action, such as killing, such as stealing, such as lying. These are what in the Buddhist term it is called rangshinji kana matoa, negativities by their nature. By their nature, in the sense whether you have taken a particular religious commitment or not, commitment or not. As long as if you involve with that, that becomes negative, non-virtuous. Another set of non-virtues is called Jebe Kanamatoa. Kanamatoa is the negativities. Jeba literally means, you have taken a precept. Somebody give you precept, you take that precept, and that is Jeba, monastic precepts, Bodhisattva precepts, Vajrayana precepts. So, when you, for example, one of my every day that I, one of my downfall is eating in the evening, after the noon. As a fully ordained monk, shouldn't have a meal after the noon. Only one meal a day, like those Theravadan brothers are doing, which is beautiful, But I cannot resist not having at least one small bowl of soup these days. That is my evening, the dinner. Small bowls of either rice or some other, grain, or sometimes a little bit vegetables, and not very big. But I cannot resist not having that. But as a fully ordained monk, that is downfall. That is downfall. One of the downfalls. But for you, having delicious dinner or dinner party, or going to a restaurant, have a big dinner party, and maybe a small glass of wine, red wine or white wine, that's fine. It's not downfall, because you haven't taken that precept. I've taken that. So that downfall, the second set of negativities, it comes from that we have taken precepts. Isn't it? So mainly talking about, having broken, degenerated commitment, my commitment. So it is not only that, it is not only the precepts that we have taken, but there are many other negativities, which are, whether we have taken precepts or not, that, due to involvement of some of those actions, like, for example, ideal gossip, or many other things. So now, point what I'm making here is this. One thing is there, but it's gone. Oh yeah, I want to say this. Among 53 precepts of the vows that we have, and it's 253. So the one is, so hitting to somebody with a stroke of grass, just hitting. Although that will not cause any pain to that person, but because, hitting other is, downfall. So here it is very much training our mind. It is not eating in the afternoon is mainly, to facilitate our body to do the meditation or other things, to have a very, very fresh and so on and so forth. But the other, this downfall, one of those precepts is, if I hit, even with the jaw, if I hit with a small, like a piece of grass to somebody, that is also breaking the vows. So these are the precepts. But for you, that, it is not breaking the vows because you haven't taken. Nevertheless, that may lead, that may create a habit to hitting others. Like in the West, you emphasize to the small children, not to say that not to say that those unpleasant words, and not to the hit, not to hitting. It's not only the child will hurt, but also child may develop that kind of habit to hitting others. So that is here, the important one. So some of the precepts that we have taken, it is not necessarily the breaking the vow itself is something painful or the negativities at that time, at that moment, but it may lead. Like another one is, not having any alcohol. Silva sana tungmecha. Silva for fully ordained monks. Even the size of what you call the dew that in the autumn, morning on the grass, that small piece of water, drop of dew. Even fully ordained monk, even not allowed to take that amount of quantity alcohol. Why? Because it will lead. Although just having that quantity will not make you lose your mental clarity, but it will lead to have more and more and more. Generally speaking, I'm not saying all the people, there's a risk. So that sort of things, to refraining from the negativity, it's not only those big things, like what is happening right now, in Ukraine. This man, so-called president, creating huge suffering. We will not do that kind of negativities. So we don't need to worry about unable to restrain or refrain from that kind of negativity. So restraining and refraining, it is very much from the training is from very small, insignificant things. I'm not saying don't, my example that alcohol, I'm not saying don't enjoy your small glass of wine. I'm not saying that. This is just an example. Of course, there are lots of arguments. A small, glass of red wine helps, and not to have a heart, whatever. That I don't know. But I don't want you to enjoy your people who are having that. But generally speaking, how to restrain from negativity is those small negativities that we may do very, what you call very often in terms of the number, very often. In terms of what you call the opportunity may occur many times. May occur many times. Number we may do very often. So learning to them, these are as a negative is a starting point, and learning to restrain from them is the starting point. If we do that, then big ones won't be that difficult to refrain, because we will, like what this man is doing, we will never going to do, at least in this lifetime. We will never get chance to become president of one country. So like that. But it's small things to see as a negative. I mean, here, the last few days, when they start this war, it is very clear for me, although I might be wrong, but very much ego, ignorance, negative, arrogant, all those what we normally call, afflictions. It is very much driven by those afflictions. I can say, I might be wrong, but it is very clear when you look at the body language, when you look at how to speak and action itself, just senseless suffering, causing senseless suffering, unnecessary suffering for many people. So again, if you look back where they are coming from, it is very much due to anger, hatred, ignorance, isn't it? So that is here, what we say to say to Vajrasattva. This is what saying, my commitment. Or spiritual master, be my protector and refuge. Lord, holder of the Vajra, endowed with a great compassion in you, the foremost of beings, I take refuge. So this is whether we will say it, as it stated in here, verbally or not. That's not really important. I mean, sometimes it is good to chat with those deities that we have visualized. In this case, chat with the Vajrasattva that we have visualized, have conversation, real conversation. Sorry, I've done all those downfalls. If we really see that, it may help to that Vajrasattva that we have visualized above our head may become some kind of, more real than just your imagination. And that's also important part. But here, whether we say it verbally or not, really mentally need to feel, need to think, to really get this meaning of those lines. And then the next was reply, saying, then make the following, determination. I shall do my best not to. So this is what very much, normally in the traditional Tibetan text, this is not there. This is very much modernized, or not modernized, not modernized, what you call the, what's the English word? Yeah, here it says, I shall do my best not to do these destructive actions again in the future. As I mentioned earlier, there are some masters, they will suggest, instead of saying, yes, I will refrain completely, even though from your heart you feel you cannot refrain completely, but they're verbally saying that's not very good habit. And some masters have suggested, just think as much as I can, sincerely to say that. But that kind of expression is not in a traditional Tibetan text. This is, somebody put it in here, I don't know why. Anyway, it's good, very helpful for the Western mind. So these destructive actions again in the future. So this is very much having like a conversation, mentally having conversation with the Vajrasattva that we have visualized above our head. And this involves those two things which I mentioned, those two questions. The first one is related to the first question. And second, I shall do my best. That line is associated with second answer to the second question. So, but the meaning is those two questions and answer to those two questions. This part. Okay. So that is here. Then the next part is Vajrasattva is extremely pleased and says, my spiritual child of the essence, all your negativities, obscurations, and degenerated vows have now been completely purified. And this is very much in the line of Vajrayana practice. Vajrayana practice. In the Vajrayana practice, as I mentioned before, strong imagination is very, very important. Imagining oneself as a fully, enlightened deity, going through the process of that visualization, visualizing oneself as a deity, not this oneself with this, ignorance mind, with this physical body, not imagining this as a, fully enlightened person or enlightened beings, but going through the process, as if we just briefly touch on, that ultimate deity, like going through like that kind of, then visualizing oneself as a deity, then strongly imagining oneself as a fully enlightened being. That kind of, imagining is very much important in the Vajrasattva practice, in the Vajrayana practice. And the same in here, imagining that Vajrasattva have said this, your negativities, obscurations, degenerated vows have now been completely purified. At that moment, strongly imagine that is happening. That is happening. And of course, when reality kicks in, that's a different. But at that, there we have to imagine, and that is important part of the Vajrayana practice. Okay. With the delight, Vajrasattva melts into light, dissolves into you. Okay, now that is the last part of the visualization. And that is in Tibetan Timrim, dissolving. When we visualize deity, either above our head or ourselves as a deity, this last part is important part of the practice. Sometimes some sadhanas, meditation manuals, don't have that part, the dissolution, because maybe it is too short or whatever. But it is good to do the dissolution, And here it is very simple. So the Vajrasattva melts into light and dissolves into you. That is, or do a little bit, detail. What we have visualized here above our head, 4 inches above our head, we have visualized from the letter Pam, we have visualized lotus. From the syllable A, we have visualized moon disc as a cushion. So those two are the cushion. Then we have visualized Vajrasattva, so we have visualized Vajrasattva's hard syllable, home, and also, if we do a little bit gradual dissolution, which is sometimes very helpful, because this will help also people who do in the highest yoga tantra practice. In the highest yoga tantra practice, one of the, particularly in the generation practice, one of the important practice in the highest yoga tantra deity practice at the generation stage is, that the 3 stages of the meditation, that is that intermediate state and rebirth, taking into as a Dhammakaya Sambhogakaya, Nimanakaya. So it has a dissolution, death process meditation, dissolving one's own, gross body and into subtle elements and into subtle the different levels of the consciousnesses, and they dissolve into subtle consciousness. Then the clear light mind. Then again, arising from clear light mind, arising into what you call the intermediate state, or not intermediate state, the Sambhogakaya. So this sometimes when we are doing the visualization, deity visualization, though in the lower class of Tantra, Kriya, Charya, and what you call the yoga, don't have death process dissolution meditation, but these are the training. These are the training to do when we practice highest yoga Tantra practice. So here I mentioned very simple, very simple. Vajrasattva melts into light and dissolves into you, just that. And your body, speech, and mind become inseparable one with the Vajrasattva, holy body, speech, and mind, and then concentrate on this. If we do a little bit elaborate, if we have time, then say that what we have visualized in according to this meditation manual, we have visualized lotus, moon disk upon the lotus, and Vajrasattva Siddhi, and at the Vajrasattva heart, at the center, syllable home, sounded by this 100 syllable mantra. You can visualize from the top, from the Vajrasattva head, gradually melt into lights. From the bottom, lotus, moon, disk, upward, dissolve into light. And gradually that light dissolve into 100 syllable mantra, which is at your heart. And that 100 syllable mantra dissolves into syllable home, that home, which is at the center of your heart, at the Vajrasattva's heart. And that syllable home dissolves into light, and that light dissolves into you. And then to do the, either you can do the straight, your body, speech, and mind become inseparable one with the Vajrasattva, holy body, speech, and mind. And it is sometimes quite useful. It doesn't have full three kaya taking into three, death, intermediate state, rebirth, taking into part. That the complete is not there, but there is an element of that. And that this will help in the long people who want to do the, what you call the highest yoga tantra practice. So that is the last part of the visualization. Okay. Concentrate on this. Yeah. So that means what our mind is concentrating. Our body, speech, and mind become inseparable one with the Vajrasattva body, speech, and mind. And that means ourselves completely, we completely purify all the negativities. That is what here, meaning of concentrate on this. Okay. So then the dedication later, I will not go those, that these are the okay. Now what I'm going to do now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read this, the 35 Buddha's name, and that will follow with what called the Pungusumbe Do. three hips, Sutra of three hips. Hips, Sutra of three hips. First, 35 Buddha's name in Tibetan. Then I'll read the Sutra, which comes from the Sutra. So I'll read those. Not many pages, just few pages, which is very useful because this is one of the purification, reciting the Vajrasattva mantras. Other is the what you call the reciting 35 Buddha's name, and then doing the purification, or Akshobhya Buddha's name, Akshobhya Buddha's mantra, or other Buddha's name. So the Vajrasattva, I'm sure many of you have received Vajrasattva mantra, what's called the oral transmission. But I will do this in those two Sundays in March with some form of practice and some question and answer. I will do that. But today we have a little bit of time. I will read this 35 Buddha's name and that three hips sutra, and I will explain a little bit what is the three hips after the reciting. So you can just listen my reading. Namo Chanchu Sembe Tungwa Sheba Da Mingi She Diba Tu Tado Lama Dapo Cho San Dela Dapo Cho Chola Dapo Cho Gin Dela Dapo Cho Jomba Jomden De Tijin Sheba Da Jomba Zobe Sanje Pe Dawa Shaja To Tijin Sheba Do Jin Bo Rapo Jan Tijin Sheba Rinjen Tijin Sheba Luang Di Dea Tijin Sheba Bayu De La Chang, Tijin Sheba Bayu De La Chang, Tijin Sheba Rinjen Mela Chang, Tijin Sheba Rinjen Dawe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Tonga De La Chang, Tijin Sheba Rinjen Dawa La Chang, Tijin Sheba Tima Me Ba La Chang, Tijin Sheba Beijing La Chang, Tijin Sheba Chang Ba La Chang, Tijin Sheba Chang Beijing La Chang, Tijin Sheba Chu La La Chang, Tijin Sheba Chu Le La La Chang, Tijin Sheba Pe Sang La Chang, Tijin Sheba Zanden Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Siji Ta Ya La Chang, Tijin Sheba We Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Nyanghe Me Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Simi Di Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Medo Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Changpe Ye Se Namba Ru Pe Ngoba Khen Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Pe Me Ye Se Namba Ru Pe Ngoba Khen Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Noru Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Timbe Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Tsembe Shundo Yang Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Ongbo Tobi Den Tsembe Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Shindo Nambar Nembe Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Yule Shindo Nambar Kyawa Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Nambar Nembe Shikwe Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Kune Mawa Kobe Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Rinjen Pe Ma Nambar Nembe Pe La Chang, Tijin Sheba Da Chuma Yang Papa Sobe Sanje Rinpo Chena, Pema Rabdu Shube Sanje Rwangi Kyabo Cha Tse Lo. So up here is the name of the 35 Buddha's name. So now I will say the 8 medicine Buddha's name. Tijin Sheba Tsen Lepa Rungda Pigi Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Rinpo Chela Dawa Tang Pema Rabdu Kyabo Kyaba Siji Jang Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Sesan Jeme Rinjen Na Tusho Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Nyanghe Me Cho Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Chora Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Chue Kyabo Chobe Le Nambar Obar Kimbe Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Mendi Ha Bidu Ya Kyabo Cha, Tijin Sheba Pe Dawa Shagya Tuba Cha Tse Lo. So these are the 8 medicine Buddha's name. So now I will continue reading those 3 hips, from the sutra. Tadala sobe chubun chibun kama sandena, Tijin Sheba Da Chumba Baba sobe, Chumden de Ka Chini Je, Sojin Sheba, Sanje Chumden de Tadatam Je Dala Bonso Se, Dagi Jawa de Jawa Tome Tamam Koana, Kurekin, Digbele, Gibata, Gibu Sawa, Shinji Gibala, Ham, Chodingi, Gindingi, Cho, Gindingi, Koro Topata, Toto Juba, Tobala Jeva, Sama Jeva, Mele, Giba, Gido Sawa, Gibala Jeva, Megawa Ju, Lady Lama Tang, Nadawa Lambala, Shubata, Judo Sawa, Jubala Jeva, Legitiva, Kangitin, Da, Sinjanawa, to do Genesis, with the Ida, you talk to the Lalo, Hot Seven Bonum, on Bomasawa, Tawa, Sanjay Chuma, the Tangi, Sanjay Jumden, the ship of Jova, Gendo Jova, Bango Jova, Samuel Jova, Kendo Sova, Tedagi, Jama, Polo, Chaso, Mechabo, Mebedo, Jijan Chicken for the Gilaso, Sanjay Jumden, the Bala, Dagi, Jawa, Tomata, Koana, Kuwakin, Tago, Jibatana to be Genesis, there come Chigan, the Zawa Kanaba, Dagi, Tsurim, so the Zawa Kanaba, Dagi, somebody to make a Zawa Kanaba, Dagi, Simjin also member give a Zawa Kanaba, Dagi, Chanju to send me give a Kanaba, Dagi Lana, maybe she gave a Zawa Kanaba, Kada Tamje. 这个旅行东的东南拉嘛嘛这个当空那嘛这个当哎呀空嘛拉面呀拉嘛用手我为拉那么办呀到我作为成就的人说我就其他的这个三界中间的能说我的其他的啊嘛这个三界中间的能说我就的其他的说的三界中间的能说我在我提醒着大家的人说我就一般他们的说下手说他们讲就是让 상계 탐정하는 꾸준 소화돼서 가게라는 시기 초 바바 토가 주지 미초자와 간단하고 조반 간단해요. 바바 무슨 담아지 연대하고 타이에서 다른 대모자와 얘도 잡고 내월을 지고. So this is a short, a sutra coming from the sutra. They are called the three heaps. So the first heap out of the three heaps, the first heap is sincerely, genuinely, confessing the negativities. Confessing in this case, not ignoring the negativities, not hiding them, really, confessing, revealing. That is what the chakso, michabo, mebedo, chakso, that means that is happened to say. Michabo, I will not hide them. Mebedo, I will, that these two are very similar. Beba is hiding. So, michaba is concealing, conceal. So, similar meaning, but the different. And then with that, which we have today, in the future, I will restrain, I will refrain from those. And that is the first heap. First heap. Going through, all the negativities, listing negativities, I myself have done, let others to do, rejoice when others have done that. So there are three, goes round three. I myself have done negativities, or I let other people to do, or when other people do the negativities, I sort of develop sense of rejoice, sense of agreement, in a sense of sort of appreciation when others do the negativities. There are three. Jivatam, that means I myself have done that. Jitu, Selvatam, I make others to do. Jivala, Jesu, Yirangwa, when others have done negativity, I make a rejoicing, so those. And then that first heap in those things, then it comes with saying, I will not conceal them, I will reveal them, I will not hide them, and I will, refrain from them, in the future. That's the first heap. And the second heap is, going through, all those virtues, wholesome, that, created by the, I'm saying the second heap is rejoicing all the goods, virtues that created by the others, Buddhas, present, past, present, future Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. Others have done, others encourage others to do virtue. Others rejoice that. So I also rejoice the virtues that they have committed. And that is the second heap. Second heap, rejoicing. And the third heap is dedication. Whatever virtues I have created and others have created, enlightened beings have created, I will dedicate all those virtues, to well-beings of all, sonam tamjalan, sanje tamjalan, cushions, so, all sentient beings to experience the full enlightenment, I will dedicate towards them. So that is the third heap. So they are called the three heaps, which is, traditionally, when we do prostration associated with the 35 Buddha, and then prostrate, each Buddha, say the name, then prostrate in a form of confessing, purifying negativities. And when you finish the 35 Buddha name and 35 prostration, then, sit with the, what's called kneel down, and then say these lines, like very much you are, in front of those 35 Buddhas, that what you are confessing, and you are, determining not to do them again. That's the first heap. Then the second heap is rejoicing all the virtues, and the third heap is dedicating all the virtues. Then that practice becomes very beautiful practice. Have many things in that package. Though it is said, the Geshe he did 100,000 prostration with the 35 Buddha, with the 35 Buddha's name, one of these purification practice. Mm-hmm. And some of you may have joined with me, I think in 2006, before I went through 6 months and did some prostrations in Bodh Gaya. I went through the 35 Buddhas. We went through very detailed, looking at each Buddha's printed in a photo, and looking at each Buddha's color, their hand gesture, and so on and so forth. You may remember. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is end of today's, what I want to say is connection with this Vajrasattva purification practice. So next few, I think 3 weeks, or we don't have class. We'll start again. You can look at 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Anyway, yeah. So you can check the program, and you will see. And then, those 2 Sundays, then we'll have light-led meditation, Vajrasattva practice meditation. And then end of each session, we'll have question and answer, mainly to associate with the Vajrasattva that we have done this last few weeks, your practice and whatever you want to share. Some may be written question sent to the Peter and Trey, some straight away useful. So a mixture of written and live question and answer will do that. So there will be 2 more Sundays with this Vajrasattva. Okay, so now the 21 para prayer. Om Geshe Pama Drama La Chanze Drama Nyuma Tam Chene Keje Lo Dang Tam Jigen Sungun Chudi Sheke Kesar Chiwa Len Chong Chanze Dongge Dawa Dundo Kawa Gene Zibe Shala Pama Tonda Soba Namanje Rabdo Chewe Rampara Chanze Zeng Juni Te Peme Chane Nabarate Jimba Juru Gadu Shewa Soba Samde Juni Chanze Teshin Sheve To Haye Nabara Jawa Je Malu Paru Jimba To Dewe Seki Shindu Ten Chanze Duda Raho Yi Duda Choda Namka Kang Jide Dumbo Shakti Men Luba Meba Kupa Ni Chanze Jaji Mela Tsamba Dongla Natso Wanju Che Chongbo Rona Jisa Namanda Nijin Choti Dune Te Chanze Jeje Chadang Pe Paru Tugu Rato Jom Egon Yunja Shakti Men Meba Chukwa Shindo Bara Chanze Duri Jigwa Chenbo Duji Pao Nambara Jom Chudi Shen Kanye Ben Dao Tamje Malu Se Chanze Kunjo Sumze Chaji Seme Toga Nambara Je Malu Choji Kolo Jen Rangi Weji Chonam Je Chanze Rabdo Kawa Ji Be Ujin Weji Chanwa Be Sheba Rabshe Duda Rai Dudan Jigden Wando Ze Chanze Sashi Jongwe Chon Tamje Guba Nima Ni Tony Yewa Yige Hong Hongba Tamje Nabara Go Chanze Dawe Dumbu Yamba Tamje Shindo Bara Lebe Trene Bane Dabara Shindo Rose Chanze Gebe Tamane Barwe Chengwe Winen Eja Yongong Gune Ko Daye Bone Nabara Jong Chanze Sashi Ngola Cha Tilgi Nujin Shaki Dong Tony Jenze Yige Hong Ba Dumbo Namne Chanze Dema Dema She Nangen Deshin Juni Soa Omda Yanda Den Diba Chambo Jumba Ni Chanze Gune Koravoka Dry Lune Nabara Gen Ige Jube Ngangne Go Diba Hone Domani Chanze Turi Shamni Da Hongge Nambe Sabeni Rira Menda Ratan De Jiden Sumna Yewa Ni Chanze Lai Soye Nambe Rita Tajen Chana Na Tara Niju Pede Yi Duna Malu Pani Se Chanze Lai Sonam Jebo Hada Miam Chi Den Gune Goja Kawa Chi Zeda Melamang Yemba Se Chanze Nima Dawa Jebe Jinye Pola Rabse Hara Niju Dudara Shinto Tabe Rene Se Chanze Tini Sumnam Gebe Shive Tudan Yanda Den Dunda Rona Niju Chon Jomba Dure Rabjoni Zawe Ngadi Doba Tita Chanze Wane Niju Zaji. So please dedicate our virtues that currently going that war be soon be pacified and to get peace to those people who are very much tormented by this war and their families, and also world to have be free from these kind of war and natural disasters. Yawa di dio Sera Mey Sera Mey le chung Tamba Kuni Tobara Cho Chanjo Semjo Rinpoche Maje Panama Jejo Je Jeba Nyamba Meba Kone Kondo Pewa Kanri Rave Kore Shimpamande Pendan Dewa Malu Chungene Chere Sewa Tenjen Tazoi Shabe Side Pado Tenjuro Je. Oh yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank
Really,
you.
really, really,
Brilliant.
beautiful.
So much,
Very
Geshe.
lovely.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Oh yeah.